Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Friday. It's our Friday's news dump, and we're going to tell you everything that's happening before the weekend hits us and you don't see us for a couple days. Today on Before Coffee, Austria to compensate gay men convicted under a discriminatory law.
And the U.S. bombs Syria in retaliation for troop harassment.
The AI-generated child sexual abuse images could flood the internet without action, Watchdog warns.
George Santos faces expulsion from the House next week, and we covered the new release of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
The Beatles' final track, Now and Then, featuring all 4 band members, set for release next week.
Those stories and more today, which is National Black Cat Day on October 27th, 2023. Now go away and I'll talk to you a second time on Before Coffee.
Okay, we're here on Friday, starting with the first news story coming out of Austria on Euronews by Daniel Harper. A historic proposal by the Austrian Ministry of Justice sees 33 million euros set aside to compensate those who were wrongly convicted, but critics say the amount on offer is not enough. The Austrian government is set to pay tens of millions of euros in compensation to gay people who were prosecuted and convicted of consensual homosexual acts. The new legislation could apply to anyone convicted under a specific section of Austria's legal code that were put in place after the homosexuality was decriminalized in 1971. These special paragraphs convicted gay people of acts that would have been legal if they were straight. The last of these provisions was repealed by the Constitutional Court in 2002. The prosecution of homosexual people was a dark chapter of the Second Republic government post-94 and a great injustice. Austria's Justice Minister Alma Zydek posted on Twitter, "On behalf of the entire judiciary, I apologize for this injustice to all people who were prosecuted because of their sexual orientation." How were gay men targeted by the legal provisions? After the decriminalization of homosexuality in 1971, 4 new criminal provisions were added to Austria's criminal code, each specifically directed at the prosecution of gay men by targeting an aspect of sexuality that was not the same for heterosexual people or lesbians. A special age limit for gay relationship was established at 18, compared with 14 for heterosexual and lesbians, while gay prostitution was criminalized, unlike lesbian and heterosexual prostitution. So if you're found sleeping with a guy, you're going to jail. If you're found sleeping, a woman's found sleeping with a woman, I like it a little bit. I'll let it happen. Also criminalized was the approval or advertisement of fornication with the same sex, and the founding of memberships such as LGBTQ associations. Really, wow, you can't even be in a club. Whilst the last of these provisions was appealed in 2002, the criminal record and sentences were not, and some people who were convicted spent time in institutions branded as mentally abnormal criminals. Austria's Rehabilitation and Compensation Act, which is part of the national budget in 2024, will see compensation payment of $3,000 for each overturned judgment and $1,500 for each year spent in jail, or $500 for each investigation initiated under the relevant criminal paragraphs. A flat rate of $1,500 is also intended to compensate people who have suffered from professional, economic, or health disadvantages. So now you just need some dude to go out there and decide whether or not you fall under any of that criteria. That's the hard part. Oh, we decided you didn't suffer that much from economic disadvantages, so you're not getting that $1,500. The Ministry of Justice expects around 11,000 applicants for criminal rehabilitation and compensation. The cost of this is estimated at 10.8 million euros in the coming year and 3 million each of the following years, with 33 million marked for the compensation fund altogether. All sentences which were passed on the basis of these specific provisions will also be repealed. Die strafrechtliche Verfolgung homosexueller Menschen war in Bundescapital der Republik. Daher habe ich mich in Namen de... Just saying it in a really bad Dutch accent. She's basically saying, we fucked up. Sorry, guys. Homosexuals shouldn't have been treated like second-class citizens in a democratic republic. That's our bad. Something like that. Austria is not the only European country to address the past shortcomings in the treatment of LGBT people. In 2017, Germany also wiped convictions and financially compensated those who had been persecuted under discriminatory anti-homosexual laws during the Nazi and Cold War era, some lasting until 1994. That's when I was born. In 2001, Spain wiped the criminal records of gay and bisexual men and women who were imprisoned during dictator Francisco Franco's rule in 1939, with his death in 1975. A budget allocation of $2 million was allocated to fund compensation for those persecuted, although this ended in 2013. In the UK, anyone who has a conviction for same-sex sexual activity under an offense which has since been repealed or abolished can apply to have their conviction disregarded and pardoned, but they don't get any money for it. And in Scotland, in 2020, the government issued an automatic pardon to all men with convictions for same-sex sexual activity that is now legal. The pardon applied to the living and the people who have since died. The pardon is symbolic, the Scottish government said at the time. It means that the government accepts these convictions were discriminatory and should never have happened. Good, but good enough? Although the compensation marks a landmark victory for LGBTQ+ and human rights groups in Austria, some still see the compensation just as one remedy for a community that has been dealing with this discrimination for decades. People were unjustly imprisoned and were unable to work during this time. It is therefore essential that the period of imprisonment are credited towards their pensions. And Sophie Otte, chairwoman of Homosexual Initiative in Vienna, told Euronews, "Hey, that sounds like a great deal. I was in prison for 10 years, giving 10 years of worth of government pensions, assholes."
Man, and let me retire.
Yeah, the fines imposed must also be repaid with interest. We very much hope that the rehabilitation and compensation will also be followed by apology from the National Council because, after all, it was the National Council that passed these laws in the first place, she said. LGBTQ+ rights organizations, Rex Committee, who were instrumental in appealing the criminal codes up until 2022, also celebrated the compensation, but pointed out how the amount of compensation the Austrian government is offering falls far short of the numbers calculated by the European Court of Human Rights. Oh, we owe them 70 million? Let's just cut that in half a bit. Yeah, we'll get away with it. They'll just be happy to get some money, right?
They'll be happy.
They'll be happy, sure. Well, they're gay, so they're already happy.
What do they
Easy
thinking?
Easy joke. Okay, on to your story.
Yep, exactly. Well, as there was a comedian, I forget who it was, once said when it was illegal in the United States, he said, "Did you know in Georgia sodomy is illegal? Well, they'll send you to jail where you'll be sodomized."
Wow.
Yeah, so makes no fucking sense. We're gonna punish you by the thing you like. Anyway.
Oh, we said that a lot in high school too. People were like, "Oh, did you know you can't give blowjobs? That's like illegal in Maryland." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Why is that illegal?" And it was because it was just ways to catch gay people, basically. Wait.
Back in the 70s, adultery was technically illegal in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So there was a town constable in a town in Wisconsin. They called him Green Knees because he would crawl around on his knees for people parked in vehicles to catch people who were committing adultery. I'm not talking about, yeah, and he would file police reports that read like, Penthouse Forum,
I saw Mrs. Stevenson and Mr. Johnson in the car together.
Yeah, exactly.
Immediately.
He described the act he saw going on. Yeah, he would. Yeah. And he would stand there and watch it. He would not even interrupt. He would just go, "Okay, I had to make sure there's an actual violation of law here."
Yeah, just making sure, sir.
Oh, Green Knees, they call it. I love it. It's great. Legendary in Wisconsin. He got into national, I think he might have got in either Playboy or National Lampoon or somebody where I read about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Playboy had articles, and I think they still do. No. Anyway. In real news and war news, U.S. fighter jets. This is from AP. Lolita, huh? Lolita C. Baldor. You know when you name your daughter Lolita, you're setting her up. Famously, the book about the teenage girl flirting with a 40-year-old man. I don't know if you know the story. Lolita. U.S. fighter jets launched airstrikes early Friday on 2 locations in eastern Syria linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Pentagon said, in retaliation for a slew of drone and missile attacks against U.S. bases and personnel in the regions that began early last week. The U.S. strikes reflect the Biden administration determined to maintain delicate balance. The U.S. wants to hit Iran-backed groups suspected of targeting the U.S. as strongly as possible to deter future aggression, possibly fueled by Israel's war against Hamas, while also working to avoid inflaming the region and provoking a wider conflict. Yeah, we're not going to go and meddle in Israel, but you just can't fuck with us either, is what Biden's saying. According to the U.S. senior military official, the precision strikes were carried out near Bokhama by 2 F-16 fighter jets, and they struck weapons and ammunition storage areas that were connected to the IRGC, which is the Iranian Guard. The officials said there has been Iranian-aligned militia and IRGC personnel on the base and no civilians, but the U.S. does not have any information yet on the casualties or assessment of damage. The officials would not say how many munitions were launched by the F-16s. A senior official said the sites were chosen because the IRGC stores the types of munitions that were used in the strikes against U.S. bases and troops. The 2 officials briefed reporters after the strikes on the condition of anonymity to provide details of the mission that had not yet been made public. According to the Pentagon, there now have been at least 19 attacks on U.S. bases and personnel in Iraq and Syria since October 17th, including 3 new ones Thursday. Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder said 21 U.S. personnel were injured in 2 of those assaults, and that used drones to target Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq and Al-Tanf Garrison in Syria. In a statement, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the precision self-defense strikes are a response to a series of ongoing and mostly unsuccessful attacks against U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria by Iranian-backed militia groups that began on October 17th. He said President Joe Biden directed that the narrowly tailored strikes to make clear that the United States will not tolerate such attacks and will defend itself, its personnel, and its interests, and he added that the operation was separate and distinct from Israel's war against Hamas. The senior official told reporters that F-16 strikes will have a significant impact on the ability of Iranian proxy groups to continue to attack U.S. forces. That's what groups are targeted. The officials said there are several that can have different names, but the U.S. holds Tehran responsible for funding, arming, equipping, and directing the proxies. The official said the airstrikes are not designed to expand the conflict in the region, but to compel Iran to direct the militia groups to cease attacks on American bases and personnel. The Biden administration has not accused Iran of having a direct role in the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, but has said it appears so far that Tehran was not aware of it beforehand. But the U.S. has noted that Iran has long supported Hamas and has raised concerns that Iran and its proxies could turn the conflict into a wider war. Austin said the U.S. does not seek a broader conflict, but if Iranian proxy groups continue, the U.S. won't hesitate to take additional action to protect its forces. According to the Pentagon, all the U.S. personnel hurt in the militant attacks received minor injuries and all returned to duty. In addition, a contractor suffered a cardiac arrest and died while seeking shelter from a possible drone attack. Okay, so contractors aren't people? What are you saying? The retaliatory strike came as no surprise, as officials of the Pentagon and the White House have made it clear for the past week the U.S. would respond with Ryder again saying Thursday that it would be at the time and place of our choosing. I think we have been crystal clear that we maintain the inherent right of defending our troops, and we will take all necessary measures to protect our forces and our interests overseas, he told reporters during a Pentagon briefing earlier today. So, your little story on U.S. bombing Syrian targets, Iranian targets inside Syria.
Of course, yeah. It was those scapegoats that we chose this time. Totally. Yep. Syria's embalmed into hell troops, already.
Man. I don't think so. They're attacking American troops.
Okay.
So, a couple of weeks of attacking American troops gets you bombed.
Of course, the real question is why they're there, but like I said.
Why they're there? Why are we in Iraq? This started in 2002, I believe, or 2003.
Why are we still there? Let's not get into an argument. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. Everyone knows the Iraq war should never happened.
Arguing about how we're there doesn't change the fact that we're there. Okay.
Okay, well, we shouldn't be there anymore, because if I remember correctly...
I'll tell you, the people in the military right now in Iraq, right, they need to be protected. It's not their fault that the war started when they were just little tiny kids. They weren't even born yet. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, next article, right. Watch out, AI-generated sexual abuse images could be flooding your internet. This is from Euronews with AP. The already concerning rise in child sexual abuse imagery on the internet, which we've talked about I think last week or the week before, is already alarming. And the internet could be much more worse if something is not done to put controls on artificial intelligence tools that generate deepfake photos, and Watchdog HD warned on Tuesday. In a written report, the UK-based Internet Watch Foundation, IWF, urges governments and technology providers to act quickly before a flood of AI-generated images of sexual abuse overwhelms law enforcement investigators and vastly expands the pool of potential victims. We're not talking about the harm it might do, said Dan Sexton, the Watchdog Group's chief technology officer. This is happening right now, and it needs to be addressed right now. Yeah, I can see that as a problem. You think there's children being abused out there, and it's just made-up images. And then it gets completely covered, like the real children are being abused, are covered up by these fake images, and you never find them. The IWF investigated more than 11,000 images shared on dark web forums in 1 month period. Among them, more than 2,500 were depicting child abuse, and 1 in 5 were classified as Category A, meaning that they were depicted the most severe abuses. There's hair in my face, and it keeps tickling my nose. In a first of its kind case in South Korea, a man was sentenced in September to 2.5 years in prison for using artificial intelligence to create 360 virtual child abuse images, according to Busan District Court in the country's southeast. In some cases, kids are using these tools on each other. At a school in southwestern Spain, police have been investigating teens' alleged use of phone app to make their fully dressed schoolmates appear nude in photos. The report exposed a dark side of the web to build a generative AI system that enables users to describe in words what they want to produce, from emails to novel artworks or videos, and have the same spit it out. I've seen that actually. I've seen somebody do it with BTS. It was like BTS if he was a shirtless Viking or whatever. And then it's just one of the members from BTS faces on the body of a Viking, shirtless, doing all sorts of Viking things. And it's harmless now, but wait until it's like BTS member having sex with this person, and then suddenly there's gonna be a bunch of drama. Oh, Jungkook's dropped a sex video. You know what? Sex tape. You know what? This is not real. If it doesn't stop, a flood of deepfake child sexual abuse images could bog investigators down trying to rescue children who turn out to be virtual characters. Perpetrators could also use the images to groom and coerce new victims. Yeah, see, Sam here's doing it, so you should do it too. Sexton said IWF analysts discovered faces of famous children online, as well as massive demands for creation of more images of children who've already been abused, possibly years ago. They're taking existing real content and using to create new content of these victims, he said. That is just incredibly shocking. Sexton said his charity organization, which is focused on combating online child sexual abuse, first began fielding reports about abusive AI-generated images earlier this year. That led to an investigation into forums on the so-called dark web, a part of the internet hosted with an encrypted network and accessible only through tools that provide anonymity. What IWF analysts found were abusers sharing tips and marveling about how easy it was to turn their home computers into factories for generating sexual explicit images of children of all ages. Some are also trading and attempting to profit off such images that appear increasingly lifelike. What we're starting to see is this explosion of content, Sexton said. While the IWF's report is meant to flag a growing problem more than offering prescription, it urges the government to strengthen laws to make it easier to combat AI-generated abuse. In particular, targets in the European Union, where there is a debate over surveillance measures that could automatically scan messaging apps for suspected images of child sexual abuse, even if the images are not previously known to law enforcement. A big focus of the group's work is to prevent previous sex abuse victims from being abused again through redistribution of their photos. The report says technology providers could do more to make it harder for products they built to be used in this way, though it's complicated by the fact that some tools are hard to put back in the bottle. A crop of new AI image generators was introduced last year and wowed the public with their ability to conjure up whimsical or photorealistic images on command. But most of them are not favored by producers of child abuse material because they contain mechanisms to block it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This already exists on Discord, for example. If you try to send a nude on Discord without clicking, I think it's no security or there's some setting in there. It will literally say, you can't send this. There's nudity. If you take a picture of your knee and try to send it in Discord, it will flag that as a breast. That is a breast. You cannot send the picture of your knee to that person. You are sending your breast to somebody. As somebody who doesn't believe that breasts are nudity, I think that's fucked up to begin with. But your knee? So there's already programs out there or algorithms or another AI probably that flags stuff and says, hey, this is nudity. You can't make that. So technology providers with closed AI models like OpenAI generation DALL-E is very fully controlled on how to be successful in blocking misuse, Sexton said. By contrast, a tool favored by producers of child sex abuse imagery in open source Stable Diffusion, developed by London-based startup Stability AI. When Stable Diffusion burst onto the scene in the summer of 2022, a subset of users quickly learned how to use it to generate nudity and pornography. While most of the material depicted adults, it was often non-consensual, such as when it was used to create celebrity-inspired nude pictures. Yeah, famously there was a Twitch streamer, who was put in a sex tape, and it's like, that's not me. And also, this is fucked up. Because it was her friend, too. It was somebody she knew. I don't want to know what my friend looks like having sex naked. That's really weird, dude. You need to go to a therapist. Stability later rolled out new features that block unsafe and inappropriate content, and a license to use Stability software also comes with a ban on illegal uses. In a statement released Tuesday, the company said it strictly prohibits any misuse for illegal or immoral purposes across its platforms. We strongly support law enforcement efforts against those who misuse our products for illegal or nefarious purposes, the statement reads. Users can still access unfiltered older versions of Stable Diffusion, however, which are overwhelmingly the software of choice for people creating explicit content involving children, said David Thiel, chief technologist at Stafford Internet Observatory, another watchdog group studying the problem. You can't regulate what people are doing on their computers. In their bedrooms, it's not possible, Sexton added. So how do you get to the point where they can't use it openly available software to create harmful content like this? Put Trojans in it, and then when they download it, their computer explodes? Most AI-generated child sexual abuse images could be considered illegal under existing laws in the US, UK, and elsewhere, but it remains to be seen whether law enforcement has the tools to combat them. The IWF's report is timed ahead of a global AI safety gathering next week, hosted by the British government that will include high-profile attendees including the US Vice President Kamala Harris and tech leaders. While this report paints a bleak picture, I am optimistic, says IWF CEO Susie Hargreaves in a prepared sprint statement. She said it is important to communicate the realities of the problem to a wide audience because we need to have a discussion about the darker side of amazing technology. Don't think AI is amazing technology when it comes to how, I'm sorry. I think if you're a professional and you're using it to make your work easier, great. If you're just a dude who's like, I'm not going to spend 10 years learning how to draw, and I'm not going to pay somebody to do it for me, you're an asshole. That's my statement. I'm ending it there. Your story.
All right. Okay, from virtual fakes to real fakes. George Santos faces House expulsion vote next week. I like that segue. Congressman, this is from BBC News, Kayla Epstein. Embattled Republican rep George Santos faces expulsion from the U.S. House of Representatives next week and a vote called by members of his own party. Congressman Anthony D'Esposito took to the House floor on Thursday to formally demand vote of expulsion and read the resolution. It comes after prosecutors filed 23 charges against Mr. Santos earlier this month, including identity theft. Mr. Santos denies the charges and has insisted he will not resign. Meanwhile, he got the vote on the House Speaker. But he has come under increasing pressure to quit the chamber, and several of the Republicans from his home state of New York said they would table the resolution earlier this month. Mr. D'Esposito was joined by New York Republican colleagues Mark Molinaro, Nick LaLota, and Mike Lawler in calling for Mr. Santos' ousting on Thursday evening. George Santos is not fit to serve his constituents as a United States representative, Mr. D'Esposito's resolution read. He later referred to Santos as a con man and a stain on the House in a social media post. He and his colleagues cite the indictments and investigations into Mr. Santos' conduct as justification for expulsion. But in a post on social media, Mr. Santos wrote that I am not resigning and that he's entitled to due process and not a predetermined outcome as some are seeking. Nobody's seeking a predetermined outcome, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. They're voting on it. It's extremely rare for the House of Representatives to expel one of their own. The U.S. Constitution requires 2/3 vote of the House rather than a simple majority. Only 5 lawmakers have ever been expelled, according to U.S. House archives. 3 of those men were forced out during the U.S. Civil War in the 1860s because of their Confederate allegiance. Just 2 congressmen have been expelled in the past 4 decades, both after being convicted on federal charges. But Mr. Santos' scandals are some of the most serious faced by a member of Congress in recent years. He has been accused of lying about his college degrees, his work experience, violating campaign finance laws, conflict of interest laws, falsely claiming his grandparents survived the Holocaust, creating a fake animal charity that used to siphon away cash meant for a veteran's dying dog. This guy is not cool. Earlier this month, one of Mr. Santos' top campaign staffers pleaded guilty to federal charges of conspiracy to commit fraud after she was charged for submitting fake campaign finance awards. So let's see, we got Republicans behind this, but he still needs 2/3 to get booted out, and I know he'll get at least half. So we'll see old George. And more news on News Dump Friday. Monty Python celebrates 48 and a half years of Holy Grail with quote-along release. This is from Cracked Magazine. Keegan Kelly. The upcoming theatrical re-release for Monty Python and the Holy Grail will be the perfect event for everyone who felt that the only thing missing from the original movie was the sound of their own voice. 48 and 1/2 years after the original film's silly walk its way into cinematic immortality, the first fully original feature film of the iconic absurdist comedy group Monty Python will return to theaters in the U.S. for 2 nights this winter on December 6th and 8th. Select cinemas in cities across America will screen their new 92-minute cut of Monty Python and the Holy Grail that will feature all new quote-along in which they will invite audience to yell at their favorite one-liners and harmonize with the Knights of the Round Table. The experience will emulate the midnight movie culture that surrounds cult classic comedies like this one, just at a showtime more amenable to remaining octogenarian members of the Monty Python. Monty Python and the Holy Grail was a respectable success in its time, though it earned mixed reviews from critics upon its original release. In the nearly 5 decades since its first screening in 1975, the film has grown in popularity to the point where it's arguably the most accessible touchpoint to any audience member familiar with the sketch group. When Eric Idle adopted the film into the massively successful musical Spamalot, which apparently is going back on Broadway, the reaction from the rest of the remaining Monty Python members was even more unenthused than the critics who panned the original movie. Terry Jones, co-director of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, famously said of his friend's take on the story, "Spamalot is utterly pointless. It's full of hot air." Regurgitating Python is not high on my list of priorities. Oh well, he was wrong. Well now, Monty Python is excitingly regurgitating its old material even more airy format, and for less than the price of a sturdy shovel, Monty Python fans can buy a ticket to the quote along and make Jones turn over in his grave. So there you go, Monty Python quote along, and I can quote Monty Python all day long, just that movie all day long. So, and I'm thinking about going to the movie dressed as Roger the Shrubber. So I get me a costume, get one of those Widow Peak things in my hair, give me some old clothes, be Roger the Shrubber. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's famously what I remember you for, being a shrubber. So.
Well, you need a shrubbery to appease the Knights of St. Nee.
I remember the movie plot. I've watched it at least 20 times.
You must find the tallest tree in the forest and cut it down with a herring.
When I was young, I didn't know what a herring was, so I was really confused.
Well, actually, yeah, okay.
I didn't know it was
I'll
a fish.
do no such thing. I'll do no such thing. Oh, please. Your story.
Okay. Speaking of old things coming back, I guess. The Beatles have a track they recorded, I guess, when they're all still alive, and somebody's decided to put it in a studio and make it into a real track. This is from our best friend, David Morquand, on Euronews Culture, along with AP. Now and Then comes out on November 2nd. Hey, happy birthday, Melanie! More than 50 years since the breakup of the Beatles, with two of the quartet now dead, artificial intelligence has enabled the release next week of what is promised to be the last new Beatles song ever. After some mysterious cassette tape promotion on social media and projections onto famous Beatle landmarks in Liverpool seemed to be teasing an announcement, the official statement finally dropped. The track predicted Now and Then will be available on Thursday, the 2nd of November, as part of a single paired with Love Me Do, the very first Beatles single that came out in 1962. Now and Then comes from the same batch of unreleased demos written by late John Lennon, which were taken by his former bandmates to construct the songs Free as a Bird and Real Love, released in the mid-1990s. Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison worked on Now and Then in the same session, but technological limitations stood in the way. With the help of artificial intelligence, director Peter Jackson... Wait. Not Peter Jackson... This is which Peter? Is this a different Peter Jackson or the Peter Jackson? Yeah, okay. It's Peter Jackson, the director of Lord of the Rings Sixology, I guess, because it's 6 of them now.
Yeah, same one.
It's the same guy. Yeah. I didn't know he was a freaking artificial intelligence music producer, but we found something out new today. He cleared up those problems by separating Lennon's original vocals from a piano used in the late 1970s. The much clearer vocals allowed McCartney and Starr to complete the track last year. Then he's just like, yo, dude, I need to read that real quick. How Peter Jackson helped discover the Beatles Now and Then. I just want to quickly read. Oh, that's a short one. It's a short one. So, Peter Jackson's documentary series about the Beatles has been credited with helping create one final song from the band. John Lennon recorded vocals in the 1970s and left the recording for his bandmates. In the 1990s, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr recorded new parts and completed a rough mix for Now and Then with producer Jeff Lynne. At that point, technological limitations prevented John's vocals and piano from being separated to achieve the mix needed to finish the song. Cut to the 2020s, The Beatles Get Back, directed by Jackson, used Wingnut Films' artificial intelligence audio technology to demix the film's mono soundtrack, managing to isolate instruments and vocals and all the individual voices within the Beatles' conversations. Jackson and his team applied the same technique to Lennon's original recording, separating it from the piano. In 2022, McCartney and Starr completed the song. Speaking with Lennon's vocals, McCartney said, there it was, John's voice, crystal clear. It's quite emotional. And we all play on it. It's a genuine Beatles recording. In 2023, still being working on Beatles music, and about to release a new song with the public haven't heard. I think it's an exciting thing. So they only needed John on the track because George had already recorded all his stuff for the track. They just couldn't get John, so they're like, we can't release this without John.
George is famously good buddies with Jeff Lynne too. So Jeff Lynne of Electric Light Orchestra and the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah.
He's the one that engineered their previous re-releases of songs with John on, right? Free as a Bird and so forth.
The new single contains guitars that Harrison recorded nearly 3 decades ago, a new drum part by Starr, with McCartney's bass, piano, and slide guitar solo he added as a tribute to Harrison, who died in 2001. McCartney and Starr sang backup. McCartney also added a string arrangement written with the help of Gil Martin, son of the late Beatles producer George Martin. Yes, I remember him. As if it wasn't enough, they weaved in backing vocals from the original Beatles recording Here, There, and Everywhere, Eleanor Rigby, and Because. Man, I can't wait to hear this track. I like Eleanor Rigby. And that's one of the songs I like anytime, really. There it was, John's voice crystal clear. Oh yeah, we already quoted that. Next Wednesday, the day before the song's release, a 12-minute film that tells the story of the new recording will be made public. So freaking mark your calendars. They're really hyping up this track. And then on November 10th, expanded versions of the Beatles' Red and Blue compilations 1962 to 1966 and 1967 to 1970 will be released. Now and Then, despite coming much later than 1970, will be added to the later collection. Okay, so yeah, mark your calendars for next Wednesday, which is the 1st. So they're gonna do like a Eve. New track Eve, and they're going to release a little making of documentary, a 12-minute film. Then it'll come out on the 2nd, and then on the 10th you can buy and give them more money. You can buy all their compilations from beginning to the 70s, basically. The beginning to the 70s, you can buy all their music. Excited to listen to the track. Maybe we'll listen to it on the show. It comes out on Wednesday, so
I think the Beatles kids ought to get together and form a band myself, you know. Zach Starkey is the drummer.
Play musical instruments?
Absolutely. Zach Starkey's a drummer for The Who. And that's Ringo Starr's son. George Harrison's son plays guitar. Famously, Sean Lennon is touring with, he was touring with, what's his name? Forgot his name. The bass player. I'll think of his name in a minute. But he's... Sean Lennon is a kick-ass guitar player. He really is. I didn't realize it. But yeah, they should get together and form like Beatles too.
I mean,
yeah, I'd go see them.
They probably play better than their parents. Let's be honest. How music...
Well, Paul's still alive. He could
well,
just
other than
join
Paul,
them,
I just mean how music has changed since the 60s or the 70s, right?
Like auto-tune, yeah, I know.
Not auto-tune, I just mean technique. Technique has changed since then. So people do much crazier stuff and can use pickups and all sorts of pedals and all sorts of stuff. They really changed their guitar.
Yeah, it sounds like shit. But anyway.
You're a traditionalist, I get it.
Digital music has no highs and lows. Analog music is original. And you get actual clear sound. My analog is just you can't put it on a computer.
It's not analog, it's a guitar. It's an electric guitar. It can't be analog.
It's an electric guitar, but it's recorded digitally, so it flips out the highs and lows. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Analog is just going to sound more true. There's nothing you can do about it. All right.
In this day in history.
This day in history. Okay. In 939 on this day, Athelstan, the first king to rule over all of England, died. Okay. In 1492 on this day, Christopher Columbus sailed for Cuba and claimed the island for Spain. In 1795, Pinckney's Treaty, an agreement between the United States and Spain, was signed, giving the United States navigation rights of the Mississippi River. Cool. 1932, American poet and novelist Sylvia Plath, whose best-known works are Preoccupied with Alienation, Death, and Self-Destruction, was born. She was born to be self-destructive, I guess. 1961, the first Saturn rocket was successfully launched, and years later, the Saturn V was the launch vehicle used in the Apollo moon landing flights. In 1968, physicist Lise Meitner, whose research, along with Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann, led to the discovery of nuclear fission. Died in Cambridge, Cambridgeshire, England. In 1979, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, an island country lying within the Lesser Antilles in the Eastern Caribbean Sea, achieved its independence. So, some islands out in the Caribbean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I do not know where those are, and I've been to the Caribbean a lot. Anyway, 2000, at a concert near Tel Aviv, the music of German composer Richard Wagner, which was many associate with the Nazi regime, was played for the first time in public in Israel. Why, we don't know. 2004, the Boston Red Sox ended the Curse of the Bambino, an alleged hex on the team that resulted from the 1920 sale of Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees, by defeating the St. Louis Cardinals to win the World Series titles, the first time in 86 years. In 2014, American singer Taylor Swift released 1989, which she described as her first official pop album. It was a blockbuster hit and won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. 2017, Catalonia's parliament voted to declare the region independent from Spain, resulting in the central government's dismissing the legislative body and calling for new elections, which claimed the majority of the seats were claimed by the pro-independence movement. Featured event, this day, Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin awarded Nobel Peace Prize. On this day in 1978, Anwar Sadat of Egypt and Menachem Begin of Israel were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for peace negotiations that resulted in the first Camp David Accords, then in the peace treaty between the countries. So at least Israel and Egypt aren't at war. Theodore Roosevelt was born on this day on October 27th, 1858, and that is our featured biography. Of course, died on January 6, 1919 at the age of 60. Dude only got to be 60. Holy crap. Roosevelt's die young. I mean, FDR was only died in his 60s. Other birthdays today. John Gotti, American organized crime boss. John Cleese birthday today, Monty Python actor. So how apropos that we covered that story. Happy birthday, John Cleese, born 1939. 1932 is the birthday of Sylvia Plath, we covered. 1923, Roy Lichtenstein, American painter, was born. So he's 100 years old today. And we already covered Theodore Roosevelt, 1858. What day is it? Other than Black Cat Day, it is it's Navy Day. It's Navy Day. It's National American Beer Day. It's National Breadstick Day, National Frankenstein Day, National Civics Day. So there's your days. Have a beer and join the Navy. Your story.
All right. Well, no more stories. It's the end. It's Friday, and we hope you have a good weekend out there. This is me from the Netherlands, who's excited to honestly have a day off on Saturday and sleep in. I'm going to be honest. And I'm sure you're also excited for that. You have like a half day today and then...
Hell yeah. Well, I'll work all day today, but I got a whole day's work today. But, well, it's National Black Cat Day, and I know you have a black cat. So
yep. I'll be petting my black cat later.
Extra dose of catnip or whatever. And this is Roger from the United States saying goodbye for another week. For Friday, October 27th, for comprehensive news of planet Earth on Before Coffee. Gavel.
The chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.